Here at home, military questions of a very different kind are front and center in Ottawa. A day after the Prime Minister announced a major increase in military spending, Canada's Auditor General says the F-35 fighter jet program is proving far more costly than planned. Those findings are contained in one of the audit reports that Karen Hogan tabled in the House of Commons.
We found that estimated costs of the Future Fighter Capability Project have significantly increased, and that the project faces several risks that could jeopardize the timely introduction of the new fleet. National Defence originally estimated that the project would cost $19 billion. The audit found that this figure was based on outdated information, and that by 2024, the projected costs had increased to $27.7 billion, almost 50% more than the original estimate.
And I want to bring in the CBC's Marina von Stackelberg in Ottawa. Marina, as we just heard, the cost of upgrading Canada's fighter jets to the F-35s is a lot higher than was initially projected. Why is that?
Way over budget, right? 88 new F-35 fighter jets is what Canada ordered from the American company Lockheed Martin. In 2023, the Trudeau government estimated it would cost $19 billion. And now the Auditor General saying that that price has ballooned to $27 billion, 19 up to $27 billion. And that, in fact, that is not actually capturing the full cost of the procurement of these jets because there are new facilities that need to be built that will house and maintain these jets. The construction of those, the Auditor General says, is years behind. And there's also the cost to put weapons systems in these jets. All told, that adds an additional $5.5 billion onto the price tag. Now have a listen to the Auditor General explain why she thinks that these costs are so overrun.
I would point to two reasons why the costs increased from $19 billion to $27.7 billion. Some outside of the control of the government: inflation, foreign exchange fluctuations, and just global demand for munitions that have caused an increase in certain elements. But other elements were well within the government's control. Their original estimate of $19 billion was based on outdated information. There was more recent information available about the costs of the actual fighter jets that could have been used and factored into that. And the slowness of putting plans into action have resulted in the need for interim measures, whether it be for the housing of the infrastructure or the housing of the planes or to train. And those are well within National Defence's control as well.
The Auditor General talking about the need to train people to fly these F-35s, identifying what she says is a serious shortage of qualified pilots in the military to fly these jets once they are procured by Canada, a problem that was identified before and is still a problem, she says. Another issue identified in this Auditor General report, Canada had initially has a contract to purchase 88, but had purchased and agreed on a contract with Lockheed Martin to receive 16 of these fighter jets. Lockheed Martin now apparently has told Canada it will be getting 12, and the Auditor General's report says that 8 are scheduled for delivery. Now, asked about this, the Defence Minister, David McGuinty, says that Canada is, in his words, taking possession of 16 of these jets in the coming months. So there's a lot of discrepancy as to how many jets Canada is getting at the initial onset. We have asked his office for clarity on this. But all of this, the cost overruns, the concerns about this program overall was something that very much came up in question period earlier today. Have a listen to the Conservatives' defense critic grilling the government on these cost overruns.
Today's F-35 report criticized the Liberals for misleading cost projections that are 50% higher by over $14 billion, ongoing construction delays for necessary infrastructure, ignoring the severe pilot and mechanic shortage, and implementing weak oversight mechanisms. The ministers who are responsible for this debacle are still sitting in here. Will the Prime Minister hold them accountable for this mess?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know if the member opposite holds himself accountable for letting military spending fall below 1% of GDP when the Conservatives were in government. This government has doubled military spending in cash terms. We are meeting our NATO obligations this year, leading from the front.
Prime Minister Mark Carney there responding to questions in question period from James Bazan, the Conservatives' critic for defence. Carney talking about spending targets, and this is, of course, coming after his announcement yesterday that Canada, he says, will meet its 2% NATO spending target by March. This is something that Canada has been criticized for, not spending 2% of its GDP on defence. He announced yesterday a $9.3 billion in new spending for things like military recruitment and pay increases for personnel.
And Marina, how is the Defence Minister responding to all of this?
Yeah, so David McGuinty taking questions from reporters today about the cost, the ballooning budget for these F-35 jets, did point to those external economic conditions that you heard the Auditor General speak about as well, the pandemic, supply chain issues, the demand for this kind of stuff across the world with the various global tensions going on right now, and said we would not have been able to deliver this project under the previous budget. It is important to note, though, that this was budgeted in 2023 when the federal government would have been very much aware of some of these extra circumstances. This all also is factored into the fact that earlier this year, in light of the situation with the United States, the Trump tariffs and Donald Trump's threats to the economic sovereignty of Canada, Mark Carney did ask the Defence Minister, the Defence Department, to look into this contract to see whether or not Canada needed to follow through with purchasing all of these F-35 jets, or if maybe it could find another company from a different country to purchase from. Of course, these are from the F-35s are produced by Lockheed Martin, an American company, and Canada is on the hook to basically rely on Lockheed Martin for software upgrades, for hardware upgrades. And so have a listen to the Defence Minister talking specifically about that earlier.
And so right now, we're taking the time we need to evaluate not just the Auditor General's important report. We accept her recommendations. We're going to be moving to implement them. Some we've already begun. But we're also waiting to see what the department says in its review that it's taken on, which will be deposited, I believe, this summer.
Important piece of information there from the minister saying over the summer, essentially saying that the deadline for a decision on what Canada wants to do with the rest of this contract to purchase all of those 88 F-35 jets would be determined by the end of the summer. The minister also talked about the fact that he's speaking with counterparts in Sweden and France, potential other places that Canada could look to buy some new fighter jets from.
Marina, thank you. The CBC's Marina von Stackelberg live in Ottawa.